So if I had to lose 80 pounds all over again, here's what I would do differently. So today I'm going to be sharing the top 10 things that I would do differently if I was to do this transformation all over again, so that it would be less stressful, a lot more enjoyable, and then ultimately would get me results faster that would actually be sustainable. So the number one thing that I would do differently is that I would be kinder to myself. I beat myself up so much when I was through that process of losing that 80 pounds because I thought that I had to be perfect the whole way through, and that if I didn't, I was going to fail and I wasn't going to reach my goal. And I was so comfortable in my body that I really wanted this to happen, but ultimately I had put guidelines that were too strict on myself. And the more I beat myself up, the more mistakes I made, and the more I went down into basically a negative spiral that led my transformation to take a lot longer. And it led me to build an unhealthy relationship with myself, and I didn't view myself in a positive light. I just felt like I was a failure because I couldn't stick to the plan. So that's definitely the number one thing I would do, which would be kinder to myself. The second thing that I would do differently would be to set realistic goals. I would give myself enough time to reach my goal. I wouldn't say I need to lose 40 pounds in the next month or else I'm an absolute failure. I would be realistic. I would aim for about 0.5 pounds per 1 pound of fat loss per week. That would be my timeline that I would set for myself, knowing everything that I know now after having lost 80 pounds, but also after having helped over 900 people transform in their own transformation. So I would just set darn realistic goals, because the number one thing that I found for people that struggle with their transformation, just like I did back in the day, is there was a mismanagement of expectation. I thought that I could accomplish this really big goal of losing 80 pounds in a matter of a simple few months. But in order to do that, I had to drastically starve myself to do that, which wouldn't have made it sustainable. And so I would have just given myself enough time to reach that goal and completely detach myself from the timeline and only attach myself to the outcome. Because at the end of the day, once I lost the 80 pounds and I got into great shape, I cared more about being in great shape than about how long it took me to get there. So if I was to do it all over again, I would just focus on the outcome and completely detach myself from the timeline. It's a perfect transition into the third thing that I would do differently, is that I would start with a manageable amount of calorie deficit. And so all over the internet back in the day, it said that if to lose 1 pound a week, you would remove 500 calories a day to accomplish that in a week. Therefore, if you want to lose 2 pounds a week, you would need to remove 1,000 calories a day of calorie deficit in order to lose 2 pounds a week. But the reality is, if I remove 1,000 calories from my food intake or your food intake, we're both going to be hungry. And I was starving. So it really made it harder for me to stay compliant to my nutrition plan because I was hungry all the time. And as the days and the weeks progressed, I became hungrier and hungrier, and then angrier and angrier. And eventually it led to me binge eating. And so I would start with a smaller amount of calorie deficit, like 200-300 calorie deficit below maintenance, just to get started, to start making some progression. And knowing what I know now, those smaller decreases are far more powerful and will induce more fat loss, because your body will have to adjust to every single little decrease that you make, versus if you make one massive decrease, your body's going to have to get adjusted to this massive decrease. And once it's adjusted to it, you plateau, and then you have to remove even more food to continue to lose some fat. So actually going 200 to 100 calorie deficit at a shot until you get to 1,000 calorie deficit will allow you to lose far more weight than if you just remove 1,000 calories in one go. And I would only focus on calories and protein goal, because the distribution of macronutrients, of carbs and fat, does not matter when you're looking to improve your body composition. The only time that you need to obsess over the amount of carbs and fat that you're consuming on a day-to-day basis is if you're trying to get stage lean. If you're trying to be on a cover of a magazine, step on a bodybuilding show, then yes, you have to do that. But if you're a normal person like me, you're just looking to be in better shape, you only need to worry about calories and protein. And if I would have done that the first time around, I would have been a lot less stressed and a lot less obsessed over how many grams of carbs and pulling out my scale to weigh everything. And it would have made the experience a lot more enjoyable. And I would have actually kept a healthy relationship with food. And that obsession with a massive calorie deficit and obsessing over every single gram of every single macro, unfortunately led me to develop an unhealthy relationship with food, which took me a very long time to recover from. That's why I'm excited to be in the position that I'm in. And that's why I would do those things differently. So the fourth thing that I would do differently is I would focus on eating primarily whole foods with some flexibility, because when I lost that 80 pounds, I was very much following a bodybuilding-esque diet. I was eating the same thing every single meal, every single day. I was taught that if I had blackberries instead of blueberries, that I would put on some fat because it was a different type of carbohydrate. If I had a banana or a date instead of the blueberries in my oatmeal, that I would put on some fat. If I had quinoa instead of rice, because it wasn't what was written on the plan, that I would put on some fat. We now know that that's not how it works, right? Calories in versus calorie out. We don't need to worry about the protein goal to improve our body composition. And so if I would do it differently, I would just focus on eating whole foods. And then whenever I want something like some vegan ice cream, some vegan mochi, or Whole Foods here has some delicious vegan mochi, whenever I want something, I would simply allow myself to eat a little bit of it, make it fit within my calories for the day, knowing fully that 90% of the food that I ate throughout the day would be 100% whole food, plant-based, and I would be taking care of my vitamins and mineral needs. Because I don't know for you, but if you tell me that I have to eat very clean 100% of the time or else I'm a failure, I'm gonna want more junk food. And so I've realized for myself that if I just gave myself the freedom to have a little vegan cookie, have a little bit of vegan ice cream, eat out with my partner on a date night, whatever it may be, and I've made it fit within my calories. Therefore, I knew that I was still on track. Therefore, I didn't beat myself up because I went off track. And it led me in a much better position to continue to make progress after, because I didn't beat myself up like I was a failure. I was like, this is a part of the plan. I'm still on track and I can still move forward. And it ultimately led to having more consistency with my action, which consistency compounds, led me to have an incredible transformation. And so I was to do it all over again. I'd focus on eating whole foods, but whenever I want something, I would just eat it, make it fit with my calories, and not make a big fuss about it. So by the way, if you're looking to eat delicious whole food plant-based meals that are there to improve your body composition, I created a 100 recipe guide absolutely for free that I want to give you, because I wish I had that when I was going through my transformation. So in the link down below, you will be able to download that recipe guide. Again, absolutely for free. Those recipes are delicious. They're easy to make. They're going to allow you to stay on track and eat some whole food plant-based vegan tacos. There's so many delicious recipes in there that I personally use every single week and that our members use for their transformation. So I just want to give that for you so you can have access to that down below. So the fifth thing that I would do differently is I would simplify and optimize my exercise. To be fair, I've always loved strength training, so I always went 3 to 4 times a week. But I didn't know how to fully transform myself when I lost that 80 pounds, which to be fair was more than over a decade ago. So what I did is what most people do. I started doing a ton of cardio. I was doing an hour to 2 hours of cardio 6 to 7 days a week in order to be able to lose that weight. But I did that from the start, and knowing what I know now, our body's an adaptation machine. So if we give it a big amount of energy output, our body will adjust to it, and then we plateau. And then once we plateau, we have to do more to demand change from the body. And so I actually shot myself in the foot by doing too much exercise from the start. So if I was to do it all over again, I would do some strength training 4 times a week, as I personally like that amount. 3 is perfect as well. But I would start my cardio on the minimal side, potentially with just 30 minutes of cardio for the whole week. I would probably do it in 1 session or split into 3 sessions after some strength training. And the other thing that I would do differently is I wouldn't do a boring form of cardio. My coach back in the day made me do hours on the Stairmaster, and I hated every single second of it. Now when it's time to do a cut and a body recomposition phase and I want to do some cardio, I go play basketball, I go mountain biking, I go jogging outside, I go do activities where time just flies by, I'm sweating, I'm having a good time, I'm spending time in nature, and it makes me feel good when I'm done the session versus dreading doing it, right? When it's time for cardio, I actually look forward to playing basketball, I'm actually looking forward to mountain biking. And so I would pick a form of cardiovascular exercise that I enjoy, and I would start at a minimal and then gradually go up from there as my body is adjusting to the nutrition and training regimen while I'm losing the weight. That's definitely something that I would do differently that would make the whole process a lot more enjoyable. Now, the 6th thing that I would do differently is I would adjust my environment in my schedule. Again, I'm human, even though I'm a coach. If there are vegan cookies or chips in the house, I am very likely, if you ask my wife, to eat those foods. And so I don't like to keep them in the house. Back when I lost my 80 plus pounds, I was living with my parents at the time, and they had a lot of junk food in the house. And so for me, I would have had to remove these foods so that I didn't have the temptation, because if the food is there, then it requires discipline not to eat it. But if the food's not there, it requires no discipline because you literally cannot eat it. You have to go to the store and drive and get it. Or nowadays you can do Instacart and Uber Eats, which didn't exist back then. which makes it harder, but I wouldn't have those apps on my phone. I wouldn't have my credit cards on Apple Pay so that I couldn't just easily pay for the food or get the delivery done. And to be fair, I'm a little bit too cheap to pay 20 bucks for delivery, even though it simplifies things. So I would optimize my environment to make it easy for me to do the right thing and harder for me to do the wrong thing. I would have my gym bag packed so that when I wake up, I can go to the gym with my stuff. I wouldn't have any junk food in the house because if it's there, I'm probably gonna eat a little bit of it. And if I feel like shit that day, I probably eat all of it. And so again, just making it easier for me to stay on track is definitely one thing that I would have done completely differently. And so also adjust my schedule to align with my goals and priorities, meaning I would schedule meal prep time. I do this now, but I didn't do that back then. It would just be at the end of the day, I'd be tired from working and I had to meal prep for the week. And I was like, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow would come and I get super busy and I get hungry and then there was nothing prepped. So I eat the easiest thing. Sometimes I go to the drive-thru, go to the restaurant, and ultimately it just prolonged the journey when I could have easily had meals prepped if I had scheduled it into my schedule. And then for me, never had any issues with the workouts. It was more on the nutrition side, but if you struggle with the workout, just scheduling them into your schedule and making it a non-negotiable makes the world of a difference. So that's definitely a thing that I would have done differently. Now, the seventh thing that I would have done differently is I would have focused on consistency and not perfection. I was definitely an overachieving type A, which right now I'm a recovering overachiever type A. But if it wasn't done perfectly, if it wasn't done on time, if I didn't respect the rest to the second or the reps to the set or the amount of rice that I was supposed to weigh on the scale, which again, far too obsessive. If it wasn't perfect all the time, I felt like an absolute failure and it made me spiral down. I was like, well, I already ate 5 grams of rice too much, then I already messed up the whole day. Now I gotta kind of make all of these adjustments. It just led me to beat myself up more. Going back, if I was to do it again, I would just focus on consistency. At the end of the day, if I know that if I give it 100% and I'm 100% perfect, I will get there the fastest path possible. If I go at 90% consistency, I will get to my goal. It'll just take a little bit longer. If I'm 80% consistent, I will get to my goal. It'll just take a little bit longer, right? If I get 70%, I will get to my goal. It'll just take a little bit longer. It's when you start to flirt with that 50 to 51% mark, you're making as much progress as you're making regression, then it's not powerful. But it's very easy to be 60, 70, 80, 90% consistent with your transformation. Again, it doesn't require perfection from you to get an incredible transformation. That's what we tell all of our members, and that's how we approach a transformation. That's how I approach my own transformation every single time that I do one. So I would focus on consistency because consistency compounds over time. So the eighth thing that I would do differently is I would seek support and guidance. Looking back, I wish I would have gotten a coach that aligned with my values and philosophy of how I wanted to live my life. I was very young back then, and so I just picked the biggest guy in the gym because I thought he knew what he was talking about. And to be fair, he did get me in great shape for the show, but the process that was used led me to develop an extremely bad relationship with food where I struggled with binge eating for years after. I developed an extremely unhealthy relationship with myself, with my body and my body image. I became very insecure. I just struggled with fitness and nutrition for so many years after I had lost that 80 pounds and had done that transformation, that I wish I would have found someone that focused more on sustainability, someone that focused on an approach and a way of eating and exercising that I could see myself keeping up after I had lost the weight, because that's what matters at the end of the day. What's the point of losing 80 pounds or 20 pounds or 40 pounds if it's only to be in that position for a few months? I don't want people to be 80 pounds lighter for 2 months and look great for a couple photos and then just put all the way back on within a year after. I want them to be 80 pounds for a lifetime. And so that requires a different approach to training, nutrition, and philosophy. And I wish I would have found a coach that aligns with that. And that's why I'm so open about how we do things in our philosophy, because I want people that want that philosophy to come and work with us. If they are a bodybuilder, a super high level athlete, we don't work with them because that is not where I gain pleasure out of helping people. I want people to have a sustainable transformation for a lifetime. So that is definitely something that I would have done differently. Now, the ninth thing that I would have done differently is to be patient. Again, we talked about the idea of perfection earlier, and is a saying that we have for our members, which is give 100% of what you have for the day. So if you wake up and you're feeling a little bit tired, back in the day, if I didn't feel 100%, which realistically is very hard to have a lot of those days in a row or in a month, then I wouldn't necessarily do the nutrition as much as I could, right? I would, kind of slack on the workout or miss some workout or kind of move things around. But then I realized that consistency compounds. And so if I felt 40% for the day, going back, I would just give 100% of that 40%, which is how I currently live my life. And I've seen tremendous benefits from doing that. So if I feel 50% for the day, 100% that 50%. If I feel 10% for the day, I give 100% of that 10%. I always give the best out of what I have because those little micro actions will compound over time, right? If you add a penny and you compound it every single day, after a few years, it's a ton of money, which it doesn't feel like it will make that big of a difference, but it drastically adds up. And so I would just focus on being more patient, giving myself a realistic timeline and giving 100% of what I got, understanding that not every day is going to be perfect. Not every day I'm going to feel like working out. Not every day I'm going to feel like eating healthy food or meal prepping or doing the right thing, but that I can still do them even though I don't feel like it. And then the 10th thing that I would do differently, and this one's a little bit on the deeper side and a personal side, I would realize that people love me still, even if I'm carrying extra fat, and that I am still a worthy person, even though I have struggles in my life. That is something that I struggle with when I was going through that period of my life. I thought that because I was, I don't know if it was fat, because I was a chunky monkey, that I was less than, that potentially people couldn't have loved me as much as they could because I was overweight, because I didn't get a handle on my weight, because I was struggling with binge eating, because I have a unhealthy view of myself, an unhealthy relationship with food, and because I didn't have a handle, I didn't have my shit together when it came to that area of my life. And so again, it took me years to get to this place and develop the tools and strategies to be able to accomplish that. But if I was to do it all over again, that is definitely the number one focus that I would understand is like, I am worth it. I am worthy. No one always has their shit together. Everyone is work in progress, and there's nothing wrong with being work in progress. And there's nothing wrong in not being in the position that you want to, as long as you're working towards it, right? That's a little line that we need to cross, which is it's okay as long as you're working towards it. Because if you're overweight, you're not doing anything about it, then that is an issue, right? Doesn't make you less than, but you're not moving towards a position where you can be the best version of yourself, where you can give the best of yourself to the people that you love. You can enjoy life to the fullest. We only have one life, we only have one body, and we have to take care of it. And so those are the 10 things that I would do differently if I had to lose 80 pounds all over again. So I hope this video was helpful for you. Again, I don't want to, one of my friends, what he did, he put on, I think 60 pounds on purpose to lose it. I'm not going to do that because it was horrible. I hated having this like coat of fat on my body that I just wanted to unzip, that I felt so uncomfortable in my body. But I hope these tips will help you if you're on your own transformation journey. And again, if you want some awesome recipes just to kind of get you moving, down below you can download an absolutely free guide of delicious recipes that our member enjoys and that Ivy and I personally use in our own transformation and in our day-to-day life. So if you enjoyed these videos, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel so that you do get notified when we post new awesome videos, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.